I sometimes wish that I could try again what we were doing on Spotify, because I think the numbers would we would have been a lot more free to self label. We just didn't have the facilities to do it back then. So we worked with a few different labels trying it out. It just never really worked for us, and it wasn't because necessarily they were bad people. It was just that the system wasn't really there, the money wasn't really there. It's like, yes, they might pay for your mixing or they might pay for your mastering, which at the time is like a lot of money that you're grateful to not have to spend. But I guess what they have to take in terms of percentages is too high to really make anything off. And the truth is, unless you're getting big numbers, those percentages are kind of like, they're not going to put anything back in your pocket anyway.
Affinity Xtra, be extra.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and do not necessarily represent the views of Affinity Xtra.
Yeah, people, this is your boy here, Roger Moore, and Affinity Xtra, celebrating gospel music of black origin. And I've got my screw face here today still, because my screw face is like, well, I'm doing an interview that this is no, you guys are knowing that I'm doing this whole thing, deep diving into the history, recounting, as people might know me for looking back in the past, recounting the urban gospel scene. But I just want to salute some amazing people in the urban gospel scene. We got so many people listed, but I'm being particular about, I'm not ordering just the guys who do certain style of rap, or my friends and whatever. So I'm breaking the norm and actually approaching this from a perspective of, looking at different elements of the urban scene. And every time I look into it, I look what an amazing scene that we developed from the 90s going into the early 2000s. And I really do think we can absolutely learn from this. And also what I want to do is salute, I want to say we, because I was part of it. We invested, when I look back at what we invested into it, not only financially, time and effort, into a genre which we believed that could transform souls. Did we get any of it back? I would say 99.9% of us, and I can categorically say this, haven't got back what we invested in a literal physical sense. I can guarantee you that 0.1% of people is maybe people outside our community. Now, for me, guys, so this is why it's important. I do not want to wait till people throwing flowers on grave. We want to celebrate people right now. We want the receipts. We want to be able to talk about this right now. So this is myself here, Roger Moore, on Affinity Xtra. We're here to celebrate gospel music of black origin, but also we're here to look into the details, talk the truth, talk people's journeys out here. Now, let me give you a bit of a prefix from my perspective. So I'm here to learn as well as you are. You know what I'm saying? So there was this group back in the day. Yeah, I'm saying I was just minding my own business, doing magazines like Gospel Link magazine and so on like this still, you know what I mean? And I was working with artists like Sammy G and all these things anyway. So, and I was going up to GMIA festivals and all these different things. And there's this murmuring of this group that when I first got the single from them, I think I got a single one time, and it had, and I remember they did the track with Sammy G. Yeah, I'm saying, I remember I got a single, and they actually were sending out CDs with, when they were the boot, for me, it was like, ooh, they got plastic wrapping over their CDs, so I was like, unwrapping, not many of us had that out in them days. Nobody had that bouginess to it, and you know what I'm saying, and we all look and go, yo, the Christian music state is back in this, you know what I mean? So we all there going, who are these guys? And I'll never forget a performance they did. I'm sure it was in Liverpool GMI. I was sure it was something like that. And I remember everybody was like, yo, that man put on a show. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, yo, these guys they can practice as well. You know what I mean? So and also, I thought that, at the time as well, there was a gloss to them. You know what I'm saying? They were like, yo, these guys have been, you know what I mean? Yo, they're looking bougie, looking good. And it was a group called 29th Chapter. Now, there's a few books out there with 29 chapters anyway. So, we need to find out which, because I know Genesis has got 29th chapter. You know what I mean? I know it's nothing to do with Genesis. You know what I'm saying? And I know you got Psalms has got 29th chapter. So it could be Psalms. We all like Psalms in the music ministry. But no, 100%, I believe that for a period, they were doing Soul Survivors. They were not only influential, and I might think I didn't know this, but they weren't just influential by just performing their part. They was influential even bringing rap to the stages in Soul Survivor and so on. That's all. Yeah, from my perspective. So I'm here to find out the truth. They were in there. They're gonna show us their probably Ford RS 200s that they had back then from their record deal or whatever. They're still, so they're gonna explain all these deals and the complexities that, and whatsoever. But that's our assumption about the 29th chapter. But I'm here to find out the truth, where they're coming from, where they really rap games, where the industry plants, where they are in the UK industry. And they had a major part to play for me in terms of the early days of bringing rap to a wider audience than just an inner city crowd, actually to a crowd in the scene of a Christian world in terms of middle class Christianity. A major part in that. People go, oh, he said it. Yes, I said it, man. So I'm here to introduce to you today. Sorry, guys, I just go on my rambles just to let you know my heart, my vibes away with a guy, James Morrison, who I know so well because I've seen his evolution on Facebook and his profile pictures. You know what I'm saying? And David Plumb, a guy that I don't know too well at all. You know what I'm saying? And I haven't interacted in my entire life with, but I'm here to find out all about him. I'm here. The representatives. Not the House of Representatives, and it's not Cross Movement. See what I'm saying? It is 29th chapter. What's up, guys, man? You good?
Hey, Roger, what's good, man?
Yeah,
man. Right. Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Oh, that's a blessing, man. So hopefully I haven't got into trouble with that intro. Hopefully I had a few amens. But first and foremost, before we get into it, both of you, give us just your introduction into the rap music. Where did it all start for yourselves as individuals? I don't know who wants to go first.
All right, I'll jump in. So, introduction to rap music as a whole. Yeah, literally, I think from the age of about 13. I think my first kind of introduction was like MC Hammer. Back in the day as a kid, MC Hammer, I was like, what is this music? Like this guy doing poetry over beats and all sorts, and I was hooked from that point. And then hit secondary school, and I had a close friend who wasn't a Christian. He started introducing me to all of these all of these kind of underground hip hop artists, and he would make little mixtapes for me, and he'd give me these tapes. And I was a Christian by that point, so I would put these on and I'll be listening to them. I'll be like, man, the language is foul, the content is foul, but the beats, the flows. So I had this conflict where I was like, this is so good, but I don't know, I'm really struggling with it. But I almost like drew from it because there was something inside me that I felt like I've got this in me. I can do this, but bring glory to God. So I think it was about 13 years old, and we had some guys in our church as well, actually, who were older than us in our youth, and they were getting into they were starting to discover Christian hip hop from the US. So I'd got like a couple of DC Talk tapes, and that was the only Christian rap I'd heard. But then some of the older guys in our church started bringing in these US artists. There was a group called SFC. I can't remember the main guy's name. He went solo. I can't remember his name, but SFC and the DOC, Gospel Gangsters, and I began to hear this kind of stuff, and T-Bone as well. And there was all these Christian artists that were coming out, and sometimes you'd have to go to record stores in central London to actually get hold of these things because they were only on import and all of that. So that was my introduction. I just fell in love with rap, and I love poetry. I always loved poetry as a kid, so I just began to start just imitating what I was hearing, and it just seemed to flow quite naturally. So that was my introduction to rap. And then obviously my best friend Prince, we kind of we were growing up in church together. Back in West London, and he loved rap as well, so we just started kind of exchanging ideas and thoughts, and that was my introduction into it. And then I'll hand over to Dave to share his experience.
Let me get amen to that, bro. I like the way you hit about the artist that you was listening to on the tape. You just said that it was great music, but foul language. You know what I'm saying? But you can say Beastie Boys on here, bro, if you need to say it.
No. But do you know what? I didn't even hear about them till later on. Actually, like Beastie Boys was not
on your
radar. Was not in my radar at all.
Man's going in. But come, Dave, man. What was your introduction to the rap scene? Who was the artist that brought you in, man? That sucked it in?
It's a strange one. So like I'm a pastor's kid, grew up in church, and my church had a little bookshop, but it had like very few tapes. It was all cassettes back then, bro.
Yeah, man.
It only had tapes, and it was very like, you know, like you said, middle class white church music, very much so in the bookshop. But every maybe couple of months, 3 months, my mum would take me into Birmingham. Big up CLC under the ramp, if you remember it.
Of course I know it. Man's talking my zone, you know. Man's gone straight into my zone. So, it's okay. It's like that, Dave. You just pop into.
I used to get so excited. Yeah, because there'd be so much different music in there, and they had a better selection. So I just would I could maybe buy one cassette if I was lucky, because they didn't do sales back then, man. It was like it was important.
Listen.
So I bought. I don't know, you guys. You remember Carmen?
Of course I know Carmen. Yeah, man. Of course.
This is like a gospel.
Yeah.
He would be like a gospel singer. He's like an Italian dude, but he also did these kind of like skits, like kind of almost like musical, like storytelling kind of vibes. And so he just really gripped me because it was just really different. And he did this song called The Resurrection Rap. And it's like, now if you listen to it, it's kind of corny, but it's the first time I think I proper heard rapping that way, like flowing over a beat kind of a thing. And I was like, I don't know what this is.
Hold on a second. I need to pause you now because I it sounds weird, but I think I know. It's the one where it says addicted to Jesus in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's the dude.
That was another one. That was another one of his tracks.
That was a later tape. That was actually an album called Jesus. Yeah,
because DC Talk was on that, innit?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so through Carmen, then I was like, who's DC Talk? Yeah. And then DC Talk's tape, who were like probably way more like, you know, genuine in terms of like nodding more towards hip hop. But again, it's like it's a mix of like pop and rap and
yeah.
And then like around that time, my church used to do this like summer thing where we'd go out and like do music and drama on the streets and like an evangelism thing. And Prince and James heard about it. And so then I met those guys, and then that's when I started to learn about some more proper rap music, I would say. Because these guys just had... The thing is, back then, you've got to remember, the age we were living in, there was no social media. Internet was like... You were lucky you could load a picture in 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was all just like, if you could find a Christian bookshop with someone who was into music, they'd maybe have sources to import things from America. But other than that, we had maybe magazines that we could learn about music, but it was like, it's actually really hard to find, especially something like hip hop in the middle of Britain and the UK. It's like
So what area did you grow up in?
I'm just outside Birmingham in a little town called Coleshill. So it's like near the NEC.
Part of the I know exactly where Coles is, man. 590, bro. The 590 bus, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah, bro. So what chat about? Man's talking like man.
It was the 90. It was the 90 back then, bro. It's the 90.
It's 90. Yeah. And he catches 28 and he get near there, bro. Listen, man. Been there, done that. Worn the t-shirt, bro. Coleshill. That's part of our land. You know what I'm saying? But no, so no, that's quite. I'm learning from now. So in terms of churches that you guys go to, were you guys connected to the same church national network, or you were just too?
It's also, I was part of an independent. We were like an evangelical free church.
Okay, cool.
So we weren't connected to any bigger churches, and we were like in a really kind of small country town on the outskirts, like Tamworth way. Center. So it was amazing church, but like it was a very small like kind of community. But we had just this one youth leader who was like, just wanted more, I guess, for the youth. He was an amazing guy. He's like, and he just was really forward thinking. So he would take us to different cities and be like, right, we're going to go out, we're going to preach the gospel. And that's how I met Prince and James, like through one of those kind of youth camps, and we just clicked straight away. I was just like, there was just like kindred spirit straight away, man. And also, these guys became like my dealers for music. It's like all of a sudden now, I'm opened up to this whole world of like
man.
of each set. They used to make me little mixtapes and like, and that's when I heard them rapping. It was the first time that made me go, oh, I want to do that. I don't know what that is. I don't know how I do that as a, you know what I mean? Like kid from like the middle of the country. I grew up on a farm, literally. So I was like, that's just something for me. And then because of that, then I started kind of getting into more music. And then around like, I must have been maybe 16, the Fugees dropped The Score. And that album just like changed my entire paradigm of music. I was like, I'd been studying like music, I'd been studying like jazz and stuff, but there was something in that album I just couldn't. It's like I knew it. That's one of those first albums that I got really gripped by. I knew it front to back. I knew every single lyric, for better or for worse. And like the musicality, like the flows, and also just like having like the singing element to it as well. Where Lauryn Hill, like I still think one of the most underrated rappers of all time in terms of like her absolute skill set is ridiculous. Like, I mean, her work's just verified over and over again. But even on that album, I was just like, it was just the mix of different personalities. I was like, this is amazing. It just really gripped me. So.
Yeah, I kind of got your age now. You timeline yourself, because I remember I was at uni when that album came out. You know what I'm saying? Watching on MTV. You know what I mean? And Ooh La La. You know the one there. You know what I'm saying? But
man, I just like that song was like, what the heck? The beat.
Radio Nut and all them things. Every drummer was trying it in church like tick tick cat. You know what I'm saying? That's trying. You know what I'm saying? So.
They also hit like mainstream radio, Midlands, UK. So I'm like, that meant that opened a door to so many other things of like, because then you'd go to HMV and you'd like go through the hip hop stage and you start to learn about. So a lot of the real kind of foundational rap music, like Wu-Tang, Busta, all these kind of guys, I came to them actually like really late, partly because of growing up in church and we just didn't have access to that kind of music. And there was no internet, and also partly then because of just the delay of like getting into stuff. So unless you knew someone who knew someone who knew someone, a lot of us from our generation, we got introduced into hip hop normally through a friend or a brother or an older sibling or even an uncle or what. Do you know what I mean? It's like music doesn't really move like that anymore. It's a different era now.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think Napster comes to mind. You know what I mean? When growing up, you know what I'm saying. So if you know. Napster, LimeWire, all these things, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Gosh.
And CD writers, they were working it back them days, you know what I mean? Working it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Were you that torrent guy? Were you into those torrents?
You know what? I know them all, but I was, because I knew it was going down a bad road. So I because I built PCs, I knew I'm not opening my PC to anybody having access to my PC. Are you mad? You know what I'm saying? But everybody did it, and I'm going, do you realize you got a guaranteed viruses in your PC dying on you? You know what I'm saying? If you open it, but everybody still wanted to get free music. Nothing's free in this world without a cost. Nothing is free. You know what I mean? People are going, oh, it's crazy.
You get me and James, like we had our office at a church for a while. And at one point, the whole office internet in the whole building got shut down because somebody who will remain nameless was downloading. He was constantly downloading stuff on LimeWire, and it was the most unsuspecting person as well. That you never. There was one computer in the office, and the whole network got shut down.
Wow!
I don't remember that. You'll have to tell me who that was afterwards.
All right, guys, listen, man, it's gonna be investigation straight afterwards. You know, what I mean? Somebody's gonna interrogated. You know what I mean? People are gonna get some receipts out there. But no, 100%. And I think this is what a lot of people kind of, and this is, guys, this is for anyone who's looking at what year it is. You're talking about mid-90s. You're talking about mid-90s where early to mid-90s where Christian bookstores. I remember my introduction into, not introduction, I wouldn't say introduction. I remember the Addicted to Jesus track by with Carmen and DC Talk. I never saw, be honest, as a black kid growing up in the city, in the Birmingham city and whatever, I didn't really take the Red was a rock band to me that was rapping over to. It's not until I really check it, I go, oh, Sugar. They were kind of like a rap band. We just saw them as a sounds harsh, as a rock band that could rap, you know what I'm saying, you know, and that's how we saw them, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, I look back and I'm thinking, oh, Sugar, they were part of our scene, you know what I mean? And then one of my major influences was Go To Records and what they did do. So one of the Go To Records with Grits, Out of Eden, and Christafari. As much as, you know, I was just a fan with what they were doing, because they was almost popularizing the urban genres into the scene, and I remember them. I really got access to them. I got access to that. I've even got the video as well. The video of the first music videos that they did and whatever. Go To Records, and CLC. As much as he said that, you know, $7.99, $8.99 tape cassette albums, you know, the one there, and as much as it was very few stuff in there for real music, that was like a lifeline, you know what I mean? You go in there, you spend the whole time in there, and I've had DJ Zorro talk about going into CLC, spending time looking for music, and as much as they were unrelatable, they were relatable in one sense. They had people importing music in there, and people could sneak in a couple of urban tracks now and again, and you would get it, you know what I'm saying? So 100% feel you on that, man. So so in terms of, you know, was there any rappers in the UK that you guys enjoyed kind of growing up with before you guys really started doing your stuff? Was any guys that you saw, thought, wow? Because I saw like Shekinah, that was a rap group back when I first saw them, As Much As a Sound, and they did a rap performance in front of us, and I was only 18 at the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I absolutely loved it. But was there any sort of groups back then, or solo rappers that you thought, yo, this guy is just, this is what I want to do here in the UK?
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, Prince and I, we started rapping in, I'd say around like 93, 94. And we were literally like teenagers in school. So like we started a group, and we were recording in a local studio it was like a council thing where they would, you know, you could pay £2 or something a week, and you go in there and there's a technician in there, and he would just make beats for you. He was terrible, but you know, he would just try and put the beat together for you, and you get like a little hour in the studio, you just record your thing. So we just started writing tracks, and just recording them, and then just like performing them in local churches, and just wherever we had connections, people would see us doing a little bit of rap. We started out in our church. They gave us a little slot, you know, they hated it. Everybody hated it. They were like, this is terrible. Wow. What are you trying to do? But we started getting little youth slots and little openings. And so it was only at that point, I'd never heard any other UK Christian artists. I'd never heard any other UK artists. I wasn't aware that anybody else was doing what we were doing. Wow. It was only when we started to get open doors into other, and bearing in mind we're in West London as well. West London is you mentioned the word bougie. West London is always seen to the other Londoners as bougie. I don't know if you've seen that guy on Fulham socials where he's always cussing West London, and you know he does this skit where he'll do the people from different parts of London, and West London's always like, we speak posh, and you know we're really nice, and we're sorry. And to be fair, like we were very much different from the rest of London, so we were very disconnected, and until we started, you know, doors started opening for us to just go and do little church gigs here and there, and we slowly started spreading out further. And when we did that was when we began to see other groups. So the first group we ever met, the first UK hip hop guys that we ever met, was a group called Set Free, which was Ernest and I can't remember his other friend's name, but there was these two guys. So we were called Set Apart at the time, and they were called Set Free. And we were doing this gig at the same place, and we were both duos, and we were like, you guys rap as well? You do gospel rap? And they were like, yeah, you do gospel rap. So we hit it off straight away. We were so excited. They inspired us. We were so excited to watch them perform. They were excited to watch us perform. And that was amazing. And then slowly, as we were doing more gospel events, that's when we started to get openings to seeing these other artists, like Gifted, Blessed Man, Warrior. That's when we got exposed to Warrior. We met Green Jade quite early on as well. And so when we met these guys, we were like, oh my gosh, there's other people doing what we're doing. This is incredible. We thought it was just us. So yeah, the more we got out into the scene was the more we were beginning to see that there was more, groups emerging. And to be honest, they were all inspirational. Like, just to see other brothers doing it and doing gospel hip hop from different parts of London, it was just like, wow. I was so inspired. Like, whatever I could get a hold of to listen to them, I would listen to it. I'd grab a hold of it and listen to it. So that was my first exposure. I never heard anything on radio. I never saw, obviously we didn't have the internet back then. So as Dave said, like, if someone didn't expose it to you, you didn't know about it unless you were physically at an event or something where you could see it. So my first experience of UK gospel rap was these other guys that we met on the scene when we started to do it.
Okay,
so,
and that would have been about mid-90s, mid to late 90s, yeah? 100%.
Yeah.
Now, I'm intrigued now. Obviously, guys, I know David's a Brommy, but he's not trying to claim Brommy. He's on the edges of Birmingham. But he's from, you know what I'm saying? He's part of the B postcode anyway still, yeah? He's just got...
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? He's just got a bigger garden than me, than one day. It's got an acre with soft grass we call it, you know what I'm saying? And you might have to work the ground. Now I'm quite intrigued. Who did you bump into? Anybody? Who did you bump into first? Because I know it was kind of we were only in the mid-90s in Birmingham when it came to rap so much, and you would have to go hardcore in the ground just to find anything. But when did you bump did you bump into rappers that inspired you into the rap scene UK wise?
For me, yeah. Well, it was these guys.
Wow.
That we met on. I think I'd seen one guy rapping in a park.
Okay.
In some open air Handsworth, like Christian kind of churches together thing, and it wasn't amazing. So like, I didn't really necessarily.
I'm trying to think if I was there. You know, was there? I probably was there.
It was Roger.
No, guys. I know, but there's no receipt.
I think
to that.
it was one of those where it was like an older guy. You know, it's like. We've all seen the videos online.
Yeah.
It's the uncle who's seen the guys do it and he's trying to be relevant.
Yeah.
I'd gone to see someone else who was like a saxophone player, and he was like, I played sax, so he was an inspiration. He's a gospel guy.
Yeah.
I went to see him. He was amazing, and there was just like a few other artists who had kind of jumped on.
Sorry, was that sax player Byron?
No, it wasn't. It was a guy called Michael.
Is he tall? Similar complexion to
Very
me.
tall. Michael Bennett.
Yeah. Michael Bennett. Oh,
yeah,
oh my God.
Bennett.
That's DJ Zorro's brother. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
You know what? Made that connection because I met Zorro at another event.
Yeah.
Zorro. Wow.
At another gospel event, and he told me about Sammy, but I didn't meet Sammy actually until like maybe 4 or 5 years later.
Yeah.
But he was like, "There's rappers in Birmingham, and he was like, George was so funny because he was like, "There's rappers in Birmingham like you, like white guys that rap." You guys, you don't know about a guy called Sammy? Like he's a proper rapper. So I was like, he's like, Zorro's just a legend, man.
Yeah, man.
But like I really connected with him. Like I think he was one of the first people who was so encouraging as well of kind of just going, just do it. Like, cause he really got the kind of, I guess the evangelism thing, which is like, that's, I think what me and James and Prince shared in common. We grew up around church, but like specifically around evangelicals. And so we had just adopted that mentality. We were like at 13, 14, we fully believed that we were going to like go and, save the whole world, man. It's like you just get instilled with this like this passion and this fire to be like, we can literally change the world. And so we connected, I think, through music, but mainly I think initially we connected because of that. And because my youth leader was running this thing where he was like literally taking us out to random cities, and he'd be like, right, now you've done your song, now go and walk around the street, like safeguarding nightmare now, really, to be honest, probably. Literally, we'd be like walking up to like tramps and homeless people and
just them the days, man.
Happened with the gospel, man.
Tracks, man. Yo, we gave out tracks.
The pressure of going, if you don't do it, it's like you've got to just do it. You've got to just get over yourself, and you've got to go and try and. Do you know what I mean? So it's embarrassing enough to like go out on the streets and do like a church dance or a church song, and that was where it was great because these guys rap. They brought in something that made me go, oh no, like I feel more comfortable in my skin with these guys. And they were like, you know, James in particular, like lyrical point of view, I was like, this brother would just write and write and write and write and write, and it's like his bars just blew my mind. I was like, how can he put down so much, like so much content, so much kind of like, and there's so much gospel in it, and there's so much kind of like fire, and it's like, but he's explaining things, and he's like, that's the amazing thing about rap music, you know. It's like you don't just get 8 lines to kind of tell a story. You get as many as you want, man. As many as you can write.
Yeah. No, and that's, I keep on saying to people, I said, the big thing for me with rap, as much as I love the art form, I didn't realize the lyrical density until I did Gospel for You, and I said to the guys, I said, listen guys, I need to see your lyrics before going to studio. Yeah, so just to verify things. The singers were giving me 1 page. Rappers are giving me 3 pages of lyrics. I'm going, yo, where you guys getting these? And then that's when I hit me straight away. I said, yo, these guys are coming in next level type of lyrics and content in there. And it was definitely a crazy one. Now, I just want to really speak to you guys, you know, in terms of, okay, right, so David, you know these guys are on the duo thing going on in the 90s, going up there yourself, you're getting to learn the art form, you're in Birmingham, it's very intermittent, but you bump into these guys from down south. And did you just go uni in London and just linked up these guys and then never came back, or what how did you guys start to build this group? Or you guys got a call from the label says you come, you right, we need some new chess pieces next to you, you know, and they want, right, you chess piece, that group there, we need this. Come on, let's do the power talk. Let's that power.
That our album Underdogs, it was like, that wasn't a gimmick. It's like that label for us, it's like we knew from day one, for whatever reason, it's like we were up against it, right? Wow. It's like, you know, first of all, we were doing hip hop in and rap music in church, which, you know, now people would laugh, but it was genuinely like, we would have people coming up going, that's like, you're literally doing the devil's work.
Like 100%.
They would be like, and so there was that, and then obviously because it's hip hop, it's like you get immersed in the culture, not just the music, you get immersed in the culture. So you start dressing differently, and like your influences change, and then it's like, even back then you start getting into the diversity challenge of, you know, like, we're too black for white churches, and there's too many white people for black churches, and that was truly the paradigm that we would sometimes sit in, where it's like, we just can't get respect from anyone out here, man. It's like, it doesn't matter like what we do, it's like there's a barrier and there's an obstacle to overcome. And like, you know what, in a way, like, I don't regret that, because I'm like, I think it really made us who we were, and it really bonded us as brothers. Like, these guys are like my family. It's not like, this wasn't like a kind of like put together production, like an exec saw talent and like, it's like, nah, we were mates, just like going, how do we figure this out? And then it's like, meeting up with these guys, for me, it's like, I understand a lot more now, I think, post that George Floyd era, where there was like a more of an awakening for everybody, in terms of like, specifically more in white culture, about like, oh, there's a tension that's been carried a long time. So my dad's English, my mom's from Latin America, we grew up speaking a different language, so even for that, like, I would, how deep it was, is that I would get called racial slurs in my, because I was just the only remotely thing that wasn't just like purely English white. So I think I just had this, I always just felt a little bit, I felt different in so many ways. I remember one time, it was a World Cup, turn up to church, I must have been 12, 13, and I had an Argentina shirt on because they were playing that week. And I literally got like almost dragged off the stage by some guy in the church who was like offended that I was, how dare you wear an Argentina shirt during a World Cup? And I was like, it's like, so I grew up like with around that, but I just had no understanding, like about what that meant. And I saw that my mum would get frustrated at things, but I had no paradigm to understand. Oh, it's like there's a racial connotation, or there's a foreigner element into this.
Yeah.
So with these guys, it's like straight away we were all just different. We were all either mixed or like grown up in different areas and had so it's like we just bonded. And then Kev, the other guy who's from Ireland, so like I remember we found this image somewhere. I don't know if you remember this, James, but there was an old black and white photograph of a newsagent's in London, and there was a picture in the window, and it's just said no Spicks, no black, no Irish.
Yeah.
Sign going, none of us can go and get the Fanta Twist today, man. It's like none of us.
That's literally us.
Getting that, yeah, that's us. That's all of us. And so I think it's just we were very exposed to that, and I think now like we've got a lot more conversational tools to understand what we were going through as like 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds.
Wow.
And I mean, even for me back then, I had no idea what these guys had faced as black people growing up in England. I had no teaching, I had no like education on it. I just knew that I felt more comfortable with these guys than I did most of the people that I'd grown up with.
Yeah.
And so it was a deeply like internalized, like, and I would say spiritual experience to like find family with these brothers. And it's like, and I just feel like that was partly our fight. Like we were bucking the trend really. And we were just in church circles, especially because what are they going to say? That they can't stand up in church and say, get off the stage because you're black, or get off the stage because you're white. Or it's like, so they have to focus in on your baggy jeans or your rap music or the culture or whatever it is. Wow. But there's so many different elements to it. Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm just grateful for it, man, because I just feel like I was exposed to, different cultures at such a young age that I feel like that set me up for life. And it also gave me, it just gave me a family. It gave me an understanding and a family. And I was just like, I just know where I feel comfortable. And so that I think for us, or for all of us, that's been such a part of our journey. And I think that's maybe not so much in a direct way leaked into the music in terms of like, we wouldn't have done loads of songs about racism or like directly. And yet everywhere we went, it's like we just knew we'll be cool when we get in the green room and it's just the four of us, we're good. Like we can deal with all the other stuff. And like we've got each other's backs. And it's like, I mean, I've said to these guys before, I'm grateful as a white guy for the education that I received.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like from a textbook or from a person, an older person, like telling me off it was osmosis, man. It's because we lived and we walked and we together and we loved each other. And that's the story of 29th Chapter above the music and whatever accolades we may or may not have had and whatever money we didn't earn. Like our brotherhood, it's like genuinely I will still think about these guys all the time. We call each other regularly, like we live in different spaces, but like these are still the guys that I'll ring up and cry down the phone to, or like laugh about stuff or joke, or like they're raising amazing, beautiful kids. And it's like, I think that's the legacy for me. That's how we'll change the world. It's like, it may not be us, but our kids, there's something installed in them. It's like, they don't see each other very often, but when we meet and have a family barbecue all together, they just connect straight away. There's just something very special in the waters.
And I just want to just jump off the back of that because I think just going back to what you were saying about how do we come together, that I think there was something like from our perspective, from Prince and me, we were in an experience where we felt like the underdogs in just even in the London scene, because again, just coming from West London, even like people from other parts of London were like, your accents are weird, like you guys don't speak like Londoners. And so we were already just felt this slight kind of like just being ostracized a little bit from the rest of the London scene. And we didn't really seem to fit in. And so even when it came to like, I want to just shout out Worshipping Warriors, because Roger, I don't know if you've ever met Paul Sevier. His group was called End Days. He basically
End Days, I've heard of End Days.
So he was like a slightly older guy, but he basically put together this gathering where we like on a Monday night they would just all gather together. It was like once a month, and then it was like in his home, like he would just open his home. We would all just go up to his house, and he had like a studio and stuff, and we would just worship together, pray together, and just fellowship. And it was really beautiful. So that's how we began to connect with a lot of the London guys, and there was a lot of love between everybody. Like, don't get me wrong, everybody was very like loving and kind, and everyone kind of supported each other. But there was that moment where only a few guys at that time had studios. And like those guys were picking and choosing who they wanted to. So obviously all of us were like, "Oh, get us to the studio. Let us have a spot. Let's have a spot." And they'd be like, "Yeah, sure." And then you never got the call. You never got invited into the studio. So we were frustrated because we want to make music, but we don't know how to do it because neither Prince or myself had studio or anything to record on. So when we met Dave at this youth event that we were a part of, we had that connection, as he said, like just a personal connection. I really believe God brought us together, and it's almost like we felt like that misfit connection because of where we were both coming from. But there was just that sense of Dave was like, I'm building a studio, I'm starting to make beats, but I've got no one to rap on them. And we're like, what? We need beats. We've got no studio and no beats. Like it was almost like it was a match made in heaven. It's like, man, God literally brought us together and we just connected as people, but then we also had that affinity in terms of the music. And so whenever we could, I mean, again, you know, we were still like teenagers moving into kind of late teens by this point, but so even just traveling up to Birmingham was a mission. We didn't have cars at the time. So it was like, right, how do we get up to Birmingham? We have to jump on the train. It's like a 2.5 hour train journey, but we would do it. And we would, you know, Dave was blessed with this space on a farm. And he was building his studio. He was working hard to kind of develop his studio. And every time we came up, he'd get a new piece of equipment. We're like, oh, you got that? That's cool. So then we would jump in and just started to write. And there was just this excitement starting to bubble. And Dave wasn't even a part of the band at that point, but it was just that sense of, right, we need to connect with this guy and stay connected. Beautiful. And we just hit it off, you know, we just connected as brothers. So it was that thing of, right, how do we do this? And so we were like, right, let's bring Dave on as like producer. And then, you know, Dave could spit as well. We were like, this guy could spit. So then he starts dropping bars and we're like, all right. And I got so excited because there was this sense of, you know, camaraderie and we were just building. Something was building. We didn't really know what it was, but God was building something like in us. And so, yeah, we just started to develop from that point. And then Kev, essentially a Northern Irish guy, you know, he's kind of like another misfit that came out of the blue. And essentially we started getting to Soul Survivor and places like that. And it was at Soul Survivor that we met Kev. Kev was this Northern Irish kid. He was a bit younger than us, and he was a break dancer. That was his thing. He got into break dancing. And so Prince happened to walk into, or I think both of us walked into, there was a venue called The Lift. It was like a skate park. And they used to have like hip hop beats playing in there. And so Kev was just in there, just breakdancing with a bunch of guys. And we saw it and we were like, man, that would be so cool to have something like that as a part of, you know, our set and our show and stuff like that. So the next morning, Prince literally goes to brush his teeth because we were camping. He goes to brush his teeth in the toilets and Kev is in the toilets at the same time. And he's like, hey, weren't you that guy that was breakdancing yesterday? And Kev was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, yeah, we're into hip hop and stuff. You into hip hop? He's like, yeah, definitely. So Prince said, we're doing a little gig, a little set at one of the cafes tonight. You want to come and check us out? And, you know, maybe we could get you guys like breakdancing for us. And he was like, yeah, that'd be cool. So Kev came down and he was blown away. He was like, man, these guys are cool. Yeah. So he jumps up, does a little bit of breakdance for us. And that's how we fused with Kev. That's how we connected with him. He hadn't even met Dave at that point. It was only like when we went back and said to Dave, we met this breakdancer guy and I think he could be a part of the crew and, you know, we could bring him on. So he's like, yeah, cool. Wow. So, you know, we all kind of connected, kept meeting up at Soul Survivors. That was kind of our main like central point where we just meet up and try and make some moves and, you know, make some connections and expose ourselves a little bit to people hearing our music and stuff like that. And it just began to slowly just build. And I think the key thing is, as Dave said, it was just those connections, those soul connections, you know. It's like you just connect as people, as brothers, and there's something about you that just resonates with my spirit, and I just feel like we're gonna be in this for a long time, you know. So yeah, we didn't look at color, we didn't look at, you know, your background, where you coming from. It was just that spirit to spirit, soul to soul connection that was just like, yeah, there's something in this. God is doing something in this.
I think you guys, I was gonna go. I thought I had to dig out these guys, but these guys are just coming out with the real, with the real like tough, the tough life, and I think that just to get insight, obviously, I definitely know if it's Coleshill. I know David from a church which is outside of our network. So when it Coleshill, nobody catching no bus up to Coleshill. The one next door, man said 90. Genius. I have to find where that 90 goes, but it's going back. But for yourself as well, because what's interesting, obviously. Guys in the scene will go into maybe apostolic Church of God churches, predominantly black churches now. Yourself, James, was you going to a predominantly black church growing up, or was you mixed? Because we didn't go Soul Survivor. Soul Survivor was not even. I never heard of Soul Survivor until my commercial years. You know what I mean? It's like what's Soul Survivor? Some big camp for kids. Like I never heard of that before. So what was your bringing into the church? Because I feel like that's almost shaping you and opened you to certain things which we were kind of like, we fight in the trenches, we fight here. They're not part of us. They don't worship like us. We didn't. You don't seem like you had that barriers growing up. So was you growing up in a different church outside of our Church of God networks and apostolic Afro-Caribbean based churches?
Yeah. So I grew up in like between AOG and Elim churches. So obviously in West London, grew up in Acton, and my dad was my parents were at AOG church when I was born. Wow. They then moved to an Elim church, which was very multicultural. It was like, West London generally is quite multicultural. So it was one of those churches where they celebrated the fact that we had Indians, Filipinos, West Indians, Africans. It was very mixed. We'd have like international days and everyone would bring their national dishes. And but from that young age, we were already like in a mix of friendships and and experiences. So yeah, that barrier definitely wasn't there. And even from my family, like I'm from a mixed family as well. My dad is Caribbean, my mum is Sri Lankan. So even that, I always had that scope of like there's more than just one race or one country. It was like I was already exposed growing up to that. So and my family is very mixed. Like all of my uncles and aunties married from different places. So my family is a smorgasbord of colors. It's a full spectrum. It's full spectrum. But the photographers going, oh gosh, we're gonna get the lighting right. The one there still. Now, and I think this is real important, because I do feel that that was not for a lot of us guys that were brought up in Afro-Caribbean. Both my parents are from the Caribbean, and I grew up in as much as I grew up in a white school. And it's interesting, David, when you mentioned about even with yourself who faced elements of prejudice. You know what I'm saying? You face prejudice, not elements, and you face prejudice even though you're going, hold a second, what's the difference? You know what I mean? I remember my friend, I had a good friend, and I can't believe we grew up together at school, and he was Cypriot and Greek Cypriot, and we got on really well throughout our school years. You know what I'm saying? And 20 odd years later, I spoke to his cousin, and his cousin says there's a guy that he loved back at school, and he felt like we was both going through the struggle. He was Greek Cypriot. You know what I mean? I'm like Afro-Caribbean, and I'm the only Afro-Caribbean guy in the year above, year below, and my year. You know what I'm saying? So, this is not about my stories, but there's some dark stories. But me and him would almost stand together. And I'm going, we would stand together, and it's like he would talk about me, I'll talk about him, my Greek, and he would talk about me, my obviously we would be referred as Jamaican, even though I'm half Jamaican. You know what I'm saying? It was my Jamaican friend, man, Roger, man, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, wow, like some of the things that you face just being slightly different. It gave people a reason to almost put you on the outside. You know what I mean? Back in our, for me, our period of growing up in that scene. But it's also at the same time, the flip side was I went to a black church on the weekend. So I grew up in a predominantly black
mindset when it came to the Afro-Caribbean culture. And one thing I do feel like as well is that it's almost us against the world. They don't know God like we know God. There's that element of that within our spaces. So when we're bumping into Elam and we, you know, and these churches like, yo, they don't really worship like us, or they don't really, you know, we have, they're all Catholics or Church of England. We don't see Elam as ALG as a thing. We didn't realize there's white Pentecostal based or multicultural based churches. For people my age to go to be born and bred in, we go to that after we had church in our churches, and we go to them spaces. So it's interesting to see how influential these spaces, these churches were at your age group. And I think that's really an important part to highlight in this conversation, that it wasn't just a Pentecostal Afro-Caribbean youngsters coming out doing rap, starting the rap scene, but youngsters that saw and I say urban music, and I know we don't want to use that phrase urban music, but as I said, from reggae music to R&B to hip hop, all these genres were frowned upon within our spaces in when it came to ministry in the 90s, 100%. There now, I want to go back to so I remember when you said Underdogs, it all sent the trigger alarms. Yeah, you said Underdogs. You just said it like it's we're Underdogs, and I remember seeing Underdogs now. So you set up you had to, because we all did this, we all set up our little label where we did our things and then we released out there. Was it something that you guys set up Underdogs yourselves, and you had little room and space there? And again, and I am going to get to you, David, we're going to talk all production, about the equipment they use and the softwares they use. We're going to get to that. You know what I'm saying? But just the birth of Underdogs. So did you guys have any 2.8 million pound took into your account and said start the thing, Bob? You know what I'm saying? Or, you know what I'm saying? Or was it, again, you just called yourself Underdogs, set the label up, and you did your album? How did that, you know, because it's that dynamic. We were all kind of doing our own bad version of Bad Boy Entertainment. Why did I mention Bad Boy? Let me think of somebody else. I used to get myself in trouble. Yes, let me delete this from the conversation. Yes. But we all were trying it, you know. No one there still yet. Back then, we all were trying a thing where we want to be Jermaine Dupri with all that stuff in there. So yeah, you probably come out next week. So we just tried to be a Cross Movements Records or whatever. That's better. Why do you start from there? But starting holy ground. We'll try to do that. So what was the mindset? Did you guys want to sign over artists, or was it purely just as a way of just legitimizing yourself?
No, bro, we came from literally Dave's studio was our label. That was we didn't have any labels or anything behind us. It was literally whatever Dave could save up for and build. That's what we were doing. So our first album was actually, we released a single. Born Again Believers was our first single. That was in, I want to say 2001.
Cool.
I think that was our first single. Cool. And it was literally like, you know, 2 tracks and like a remix or something. And that was all done in Dave's studio. We literally had that as like a calling card. You know, it's like we got the CDs but duplicated or whatever at some duplication place, and we did, I don't know, however many thousand copies, and we just had this trunk load of CDs that we were just like, right, we've got a calling card, we've got something we can sell, we've got something we can give to people. And that's how we started, and then it was kind of, as we were doing gigs, as we were getting more open doors to kind of do, you know, performances at different places, we'd sell the album, we'd give it out to people, send it out to people, and then we kind of, you know, managed to kind of save a little bit of money off the sales of that, maybe doing some gigs, we got a little bit of money coming in, so whatever we could scrape together. And I'm sure we probably threw some of our own money in as well. And then it was just like, right, okay, can we produce the next album full time? We did that, 2004, I think that was. And again, it was just completely off our own back. Prince was a designer, so he just did all the design work, all the artwork, photo shoots, all of that. We just put it all together. We pulled in favors. We knew a lady that did photography, so we just got her in. Oh, actually, I missed History as well. History was our first EP. That was in what was that? No, that was 2001. Yeah. So we were just like, every time we kind of, got some money together, we'd put a recording out, try and just, we were just trying to build. So it was literally off our own backs, no real support until. That being said, we did have the main church that Prince and I kind of grew up in, which was Ealing Christian Centre in Ealing.
Yes.
They began to kind of get behind us, but that was kind of when we like launched out into full time. But there was people supporting us like in little kind of dribs and drabs up to that point, and we just pulled together whatever resources we had. And just to make it happen, and just tried to do the best quality product that we could put out, for the money that we had. So no labels, no support, nobody kind of behind us saying, yes, this is great. We'll put a couple of million in, and get make the album. Nah, none of that. It was just favors and
you made it work.
Beg, borrowing, and try not to steal.
No. I don't know. It's important because you guys came across so professional from outside. It made it look like that you've been backed by integrity or something. You know what I'm saying? And that's how it came across. And that's testament to you guys. You came across it's so sharp. Now I want to get to David now, so because I'm a bit of a buff when it comes to computers and technology and whatever. They're still, I know if you started in the 90s, where he started on a Mac, unless he definitely had some seed money. You know what I'm saying? That's why I know you're a rich boy. But what was your experience? Because obviously when it comes to hip hop, everybody expects producers to be MPC literate guys and whatever, but really and truly, let's be real, myself, I've still got my original PC right there, but I'm a Cubase guy. You know what I'm saying? Back in the day, Cubase SL, Cubasis SX, going to modules, doing all them different things and whatever there. So talk to me, so when these guys come into your studio, bro, what was you know what I'm saying? And please don't tell me you was using Creative Audio sound cards, but listen, please explain to us what was your studio? Oh my goodness! You got the gold deluxe version, with the delay.
Remember the one that had the little thing that you could put in the front where the DVD player used to go?
Yeah, man.
The Creative Labs, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, my first software was Cubase, VST32, and I remember because I worked an entire summer. And I gave all of my paychecks to my dad to be like, put that aside because I want to buy this software. So my first setup was on the computer. So like my parents were amazing with music. Like they really encouraged us. So like I got piano lessons and I got like instrumental lessons, and then so they were really good at investing in that way, like whatever they could to just like get us into piano lessons or like music lessons and stuff, which I hated at the time. Like I used to hide my piano book in the sleeve of my coat because I didn't want people to think I was a geek or something. To the piano lessons, but like so we had a few instruments around the house, like guitars, and we had like a piano in the house and stuff. But like I got really obsessed with hip hop at an early age, but again, because there was no internet, I didn't know about MPCs. I had no one to tell me, you can buy this machine. And so like I was going, how are they making
these beats?
How are they making these beats and how are they making these drum sounds? And it's like, it's so bizarre. Like I had this process that I went through where it's like I basically discovered sampling like by accident because there was no way of learning about how to sample.
Go on, talk to me.
And I heard this record. It was what were they called? Was it PID? Not PID. No, they were a rock band.
The PID is a rock band.
Yeah, no, that's a rock band. There was a band, anyway, there was a Christian group that had a CD out, and I loved this one track, and they like left a little, like the beat exposed at the beginning of the track for like 4 bars. So I was like, I got the cassette, and like somehow found a way to get that into my dad's computer. I recorded it, and then I cut it up in what was it called, Wavelab or whatever.
Wavelab. Yeah.
I was so slick. I was like, I've discovered a new way, and I was like, you're just sampling. They've been doing it for 15 years. You just didn't know about it. So like, where like Cubase VST32, you could have like 2 tracks of audio.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
You could have 2 tracks of audio. So I was like, great. There's my loop. There's that loop, and I put that in there, and I copied and pasted it. And I thought I was being slick. Like I discovered a whole new way of making music. I thought I was so clever.
Yo.
But then gradually, as I started reading like magazines, I started to learn. And I remember then I found this article, right? And there's this guy in there that you might have heard of called Dr. Dre. and he's sat in front of a big mixing desk, and there's like two orange speakers. I've actually got a set of those speakers. There's two little orange speakers, KRKs, and he's sat in front of his desk, and he's, he's the classic pose. He's like this in front of this huge desk. And so, I must have been at this point, this was like early on, so like I would have been like maybe 13, 14. Wow. And something inside me just went, I don't know what that guy does, but that's what I want to do.
Come on now. Wow.
This is like implanted in my brain. I didn't know about, do you know what I mean? Like any of his scene, but I was just like, and then, later on I started connecting dots and going, oh man. So I had this picture in my head of a mixing desk and a set of speakers from when I was little. And going, so I was just always trying to find stuff. So, James is kind, saying he used to come to my studio. Like, my studio was like a PC that I'd built, which was awful.
Yeah.
A mini disc player. That was it, bro. That was the first
mini disc player.
To me, that was a studio.
Yeah, bro.
To me, that was a studio.
Bro, this is where, my first sampling job was on Commodore Amiga, so I got a Commodore Amiga. You know what I'm saying? And bro, if I switched off that Commodore Amiga, all the information's gone. So you had to make sure you had to record it, because there was no way of, I've got a zip drive behind me, to my old zip drive I had back in the day, and people didn't realize floppy disks did not carry that weight, So we had to copying it back onto tape was important, because once you've done it, it's definitely crazy what it is. But
and then Prince actually, like he really invested. Like one summer, he was just like, I've been saving up some money, and so we bought like so I'd been at college and I'd learned on ADAT machines at college. So there's a mixing desk and ADAT. So they had two ADAT machines linked together. That means we could do 16 tracks. And that's when I first started going, I can layer properly. And so we learned on the little Tascam cassette 4 tracks first.
Man.
And then we went into the bigger studio, which was a broom cupboard. And it had a mixing desk and these ADATs. So that's where I was like learning a little bit more like outboardy kind of stuff. But then, at some point, I think it was after Born Again Believers probably, or around that time, where Prince just like, he was like, I'm going to put some money in. And we bought a mic and a preamp. And we bought.
Come on now.
Then I had saved up and I bought an MD8 mini disc multi-track recorder.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I've still got one. It actually got stolen, but I bought another one on eBay. Literally maybe 3 or 4 years ago, because I found all the old discs. Yeah. So I've got an ancient PC, and at some point I'm going to try and recreate it and bring it all back to life, because there's stuff that's lost in the archives, man. But anyway, probably that we don't want to hear, but hey. It was like James said, it was one thing at a time, really. Like I got a job after uni, like, because I had a keyboard. I bought a keyboard at one point, and then I was using the keyboard to make beats as well. But obviously with an arranger on a keyboard, you've only got so far really that you can go with it. And I just was constantly like using MIDI and like trying to bring more things in, add a sound module here, add a thing there. So yeah, it was all Cubase. It was all Cubase really until much later on, and I grew with Cubase. We went from 32, and then it turned into like, was it SX? And then we had like more audio, and they had samplers and stuff in there, and then a lot of software that I may or may not have been given on a CD.
We know about that CD, bro. We know about that 20 that Waves plug-in CD. The one there, bro. We know about that Nectar and all them Oxygen and all them softwares there. I know. Look, it's turned red now. It's turned red. So yeah.
Free trials back then. Do you know what I mean? So it's like. Even some of the outboard stuff that I've got now. It's like I learned about the outboard stuff like through cracked plugins. That I was like, why they use that, because it does this, and it's like, so I tried to study music. Like I did music at uni, and then I couldn't get to the studios until the second year. Got to the second year, and they dropped all of there was not enough, I don't know, interest in it, so I couldn't get in the studio. So I just quit uni at that point, and I just started learning. But like, really, what I should have done is gone from A level, just gone straight into like some kind of studio environment, and I would have picked up a lot more. Go and make the tea somewhere, get an internship, but the route that I took ended up putting me on a job. I got a job in town, which was like installing telephone networks. But the key thing about that was I was living at home, so I had a bit of disposable income, and they gave me a van. The rule with the van was you had a fuel card, but like you had to fill it up on Friday, as long as on Monday there was the same amount of fuel in, you could do whatever you could literally do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But that plan took me to like wherever we were going, over like Dorset or like Manchester, wherever we were going. That took me to so many gigs.
Crazy.
It's like, because we, as long as I put the fuel back in, we were cool.
No, and I think as well. I think because I worked a bit of telecommunications, a bit still. What is it? Cable wireless and all team 1-to-1 back in the day, and even networking. I think that set the foundation for me, even with computer wise, developing your own kind of it gives you a mindset towards what we have now with technology. Like myself, I moved from PC to Mac, and then obviously to Logic, audio work, cards I try to purchase. And did you find yourself losing a lot of money on poor investments because you didn't know, the lack of knowledge, or is there a piece again where you go?
I think yes and no. Like growing up, like we just didn't have a lot of money. My dad worked really hard, and we looked like we had money because we lived on a farm, and a farm always has a big house and there's land. So people assume, but we're tenant farmers, and like growing up, my dad's, he just had to work really hard. The business wasn't in a good place when he kind of took over it, and so there just wasn't a lot of spare money knocking around. And so but again, being like, growing up on a farm, you kind of learn to kind of hustle and fix things. And so that's where the computer thing came. I really wanted a better PC. Yeah. And my dad was like, well, this is what I can afford. And then I would just go online and figure out, well, if I build it myself, I can get like twice the amount of power for the same price. Yeah. And so we'd found a little guy who had built a machine for him. And then I just was like, curious kid. So I just used to take things apart, even from when I was little.
Cool.
She used to take things apart, and so I had that inquiry mind to kind of go, and it's partly just like intrigue and being a techie geek, and it's partly just being a hustler. You're like, well, if I can build it, I'm going to save so much money. And also, like back then, it's like it was the difference between being able to make a beat and not was the PC that you could afford to put together. And so like the RAM and the like hard, like it wasn't even really so much hard drive space, but it was like the CPU and the RAM were like really important. And it's like it would be the difference between being able to do audio or not audio at some points in time. So there was a few things where it's like, I remember I bought a CD burner that was a complete waste of money because we ended up not really doing that a lot. But it was cool to be able to burn a CD and play it in the car. So there was a few more little things like that. But generally speaking, I was pretty like... there was two things I was good at. I was good at like researching and finding out what to get. Good. And then I was good at getting a deal. Yeah. And so I would also then, I worked in a music shop for a while. Okay. So like anything that came in to get bought, I would be like, I want that. Yeah. And the boss was amazing. He would let me buy it for what the guy that had brought it in for. So like I got a big 32 track mixing desk one time for like 300 quid because the guy that brought it in was desperate to sell it. He was possibly into some dodgy stuff. Yeah. And the literally I was off that day, but the boss was amazing. He rang me and he went, "Oh, a guy's just brought this in. I've got it for 300 quid. If you want it for 300 quid, you can have it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll have that." Yeah. So that was like, that was the first mixing desk. So then when the guys came up, I was like, "Yeah, look at my desk." Okay. And it was rubbish.
What make was it?
Dude, it was a Behringer. 32 channel. Remember the big grey?
Yeah, I know it. I know which one you're about. I know.
Mackie made the proper one.
Yeah.
But that was like a bit cheaper. It's just like a 48, 32, 48.
I know exactly.
Remember, bro.
So what shop was that?
That was it was called Music Way at the time.
Yeah, I know the one. I know.
So I worked there for probably a couple of years, like doing weekend stuff or whatever.
That's cool.
And it became PMT after that.
PMT.
And then it moved location. But do you remember when it was in the old place?
Yeah.
By that island.
So on a second, James, did you have an attempt to make a beat? Did these guys try to knock you off, Dave, and have a go at making beats? Or have you got any evidence of that?
No one ever really did it, did they?
They just left you to it?
I mean, sometimes we used to sit with Dave, and like if I had an idea, like I might sit with him and just be like, all right, I'd sing it to him, and then he'd play it and then change it up. But generally it was like we were like, okay, Dave's in that pocket. He's got the beats
Crazy.
lockdown, that's all good. We can just focus on writing.
Guys, this is actually totally insightful. This whole conversation. I'm actually seeing how you guys almost created a creative bubble to produce with how you guys this kind of like delivered the gospel rap out there, and how you're using networks, you hustled, you've gone through a transitional time. And to be honest, like you said, you were West London. Obviously, you guys are known from West London. Obviously, in Birmingham, so we know Birmingham. We're always outside the network anyway. So so you guys are not part of the natural kind of like theatre of I would say the hardcore gospel music scene, and you guys just operated in the scene that you're known doing rap. Which for me is just like absolutely crazy. And it's when I look back and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I remember Underdogs. I remember you guys bringing out your albums, and I remember when he brought out that album, his statement was full time. I was like, I think you guys are the first ever full-time rappers ever in the UK for Christian rappers. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I remember seeing that title. I was going, how the heck do you get to be full-time in the UK? You know what I'm saying? So that's why I see you guys as a bougie band. Yeah, I'm saying whatsoever. So was that was that full-time being it was like a prophecy you're trying to bring it into being, or were you guys actually full-time in ministry?
Okay, so that journey was a long, slow journey, but it was something that we were just so committed to achieving. So basically, I think we were all the three of us were in uni around that time. It was around kind of late 90s, and we were finishing. So during uni we were kind of beginning to get more slightly bigger gigs. We were all in different places at that point, but we were starting to get like slightly bigger gigs, so we were getting more opportunities. And I just knew by the end of university, I was like, I can't see myself doing anything else other than music, like full time. I don't even know what that looks like, but I can't see myself doing anything else other than music. And I know Dave was on that same vibe. Prince at that point, he dropped out of uni and he was working for a design company, and he was a little bit more like, I'm not sure about the whole full time thing. Kev had just kind of joined the band, so I don't think he'd even started uni yet. But he was kind of coming back and forth from Northern Ireland. And we got to that point where we were just like, there was that sense of, we feel like God's calling us to go full time in this. But what does that look like? Because as you said, we've never seen it done. There was no blueprint for it. We don't have a label behind us. We're not in America where people pay lots of money to see Christian artists. What does that look like? How is that even possible? So we prayed into it. We discussed it. We went back and forth. We got advice from different people. And the advice that came back that sat with us the most was set up a charity and basically like launch out through the charity. So we were like, okay, well, charity, that sounds like a whole heap of work, a whole heap of headache, like a charity and what are we going to do? So after a long period of like prayer and advice and guidance and all of that stuff, we formulated this idea to essentially develop a charity that was going to work with young people, work in schools, do local council stuff, whatever we could get our hands on that was working with young people to help impact the community. So that was the vision behind that. Acts 29 was the name of the band that we were starting to form, because actually I want to shout out Yinka as well. So Yinka was another rapper from West London. He was like Northwest from Harlesden, and he was kind of like rapping back then. He wasn't kind of doing a lot of stuff like majorly, but like in London he was kind of on the scene, and we connected with him, and he was going to be a part of the group initially, and we used to do a lot of street outreach stuff with him. And he was the one that came up with the name Acts 29, and the whole vision was being the continuation of the book of Acts. So it was that sense of like, we've got a heart to take the gospel out, to see signs and wonders, follow the preaching of the gospel. We just want to do this. We want to just go out and give the gospel out. So that was the heart behind it, and we loved it. And we thought, okay, we're going to create a bit of a collective, because obviously we had Dave kind of lingering in Birmingham, but we couldn't practically see how it's all going to work. So we thought, okay, Yinka will be with us, with Prince and myself, and then we can get Kevin to kind of do like the dancing stuff, and Dave will do the beats. And so we're trying to formulate this Acts 29 thing. And then Yinka basically just said, look, guys, I feel like God's actually calling me to go and pastor. So he just kind of like pulled out.
Crazy.
So we're like, okay. So that left us with the four of us. And then we just decided to just go under the banner of Acts 29. So when we launched the charity, we just launched it under the banner of Acts 29, but then we realized we kind of need to have a slightly different name as the band so that we're not the same entity as the charity, because the band was going to be basically as a part of the charity. It was going to be the band would be essentially employees of the charity. So we set it up as this banner charity, and then we began to essentially work for the charity. So I think it was like 2003, I want to say 2003, because I'd literally just got married, and we launched out full time, and it was basically a step of faith, because we didn't have the money. All we had was ECC basically said, look, we can support you by giving you a bit of money a month, and then we can give you an office space, and then we'll see if we can figure out a bit of space for a studio. So God bless ECC, they gave us the space. The room, I don't know if you've ever seen our full-time video, but we had this backing video for our track Full-Time, and it was in our office. The room was literally like a broom cupboard.
So I can imagine.
It was like a long, like narrow cupboard that we all sat in a line.
Wow.
And we were stuffed in this. So people came in the door, they'd have to like slide past you to get past your back.
Wow.
And we just sat in a line there, and we were literally the first. We launched out into, well, I say full time, it was part time, because we were doing like 2 or 3 days a week, and then the other 2 days a week we would be working part time jobs. And the idea was every time we were in the office, it was like writing letters to get support, get financial support. So we wrote to every friend and family member that we possibly knew that would care about what we were doing. Like churches that we knew, we just said, look, please support us. Would you consider giving like a monthly donation? And somehow we managed to just build the funds to be able to support 4 wages, which in itself is incredible. It was only God that did that. It was only God, because I don't know how we survived. I know there was times when Prince would sit us down and be like, guys, I'm not sure there's enough money this month. We might have to take a little cut in the pay. And we were like, oh, okay, all right. Okay, that's cool. Okay, whatever we need to do. And it was painful. But we kept hustling. We were just trying to get gigs and trying to just come up with ideas that would kind of produce more income so that we could just make it happen. So when we launched the album full time, it was a statement of, this is what we're doing. Like, and we were essentially full time by that point. But it was very much like, not sure how we're going to sustain this, but this is what we're doing. And so, so that album full time came off the back of we've launched out. We've launched out as a charity. We've launched out as a band. And we're just going to figure out how to do this.
Crazy. That's inside. What year was full time again?
2004.
Yeah, I remember that. For some reason, I even remember the point. So 2000. So how many?
That was the line for us. That was like, I moved to London. I got married 2004. So I moved to London. It's like 6 months before I got married. So it's like it was a real line in the sand where we were like, full time was like, we knew by the end of that year or the next year that we would, that's where we were headed. But it was a big step for all of us to go, we've got an office now. We've set up the charity. We're all moving to London. This is a thing. This is what's happening. Yeah.
So, how long did that last? How long did that charity keep going? How long did you guys able to? Because I know there was, I've got a Gospel magazine where you guys were at Soul Survivor doing your thing in 2011 or something like that. Still,
right. If we're going to talk about Soul Survivor, I need to correct some history here, right? Because I've heard it said on other podcasts, which is all I'm going to say. James is getting nervous now.
No, I know you.
I'm not naming names. I've heard it said that the reason we were at Soul Survivor was because of certain spouses in the band that were linked to other charities, and it's like, no. From the age of like, I went Soul Survivor first when I was like 14 years old, right? So my big sister took me, went to Soul Survivor, and it's like, that was it. I was like, this is amazing, and I started going every year. So I met these guys. So before we were even in a band. Officially, we met at Soul Survivor. We grew up going to Soul Survivor every year. And then what happened was once we then started doing stuff together, we were just trying to get gigs, but none of the venues would let us do a gig. So what we would do is we would post up outside the gig before the gig would start, like half an hour, everyone's queuing, right? So we were like, cool. So we'd just go outside the venue and we would just start freestyling. James would beatbox, or like we'd have a little speaker or whatever, and we would just start rapping outside. And it's like, what was happening was, at one point, more people were coming out of the venue to see what we were doing than were going into the venue to set. So we literally forced ourselves onto the stage at Soul Survivor, really, by just going, look, this is us. Eventually, they started giving us the little cafe. Eventually, then they moved us up into the venue, and then like we met with the guys from the Tribe, from the Message in Manchester, and it's like,
guys,
they gave us opportunities. They were really good with us, but like we had hustled Soul Survivor from literally 2005, 6.
Yeah.
And so,
No, 98, bro. 98 was Prince and my first year at Soul Survivor. And 2000, we went to Manchester 2000. That was the first year the four of us met up together to do gigs at,
come on now,
at Soul Survivor.
let me see that, man. Put it out there, bro. Was actually 90. Okay, by the way, I got married in 98. But listen,
so just to finish the thought, the reason that those doors were opened were not because like a label. So we worked with a couple of labels, a couple of the albums. So like Underdogs, for example, we worked with Integrity started a label, like a subdivision called OTR, and they were space for people like us and others.
Green Jade, who did OTR records. Yeah,
Green Jade was on there. LZ, I think LZ7 was on there.
Is it?
Possibly what on there. So there was a season where it's like, oh, okay, there's enough bands, let's do a thing. And Integrity were trying a thing, but like we didn't get on there because like we got on there because like we were foundational in creating a space at Soul Survivor where actually people who weren't just into white worship music could have an outlet. And there was other bands that were doing stuff. And the Message, like the Tribe guys were really, really open-hearted with us, and they loved what we were about. But it's like all of that stuff, it's like that wasn't given to us. Like we ended up like rapping on stage with the worship guys. But again, that wasn't because we were with OTR. That's because I walked up to Tim Hughes at an event in Birmingham, and I was like, you don't know me. And I had a cassette in my hand, and I was like, will you come and sit in my car and listen to something?
Come on now.
And I literally forced this like guy to come and sit in my car and listen to a remix that I made of one of his songs with us rapping on it. And it was just, he just was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible.
Wow.
So it's like, we weren't given anything, bro. Like we hustled everything from day one.
Wow.
So it's just like, I've
Wow.
I've heard a few versions of why rap music landed at Soul Survivor.
Wow.
But officially from day one, it's like,
guys, sorry, that was not me, man, because Soul Survivor is so off my radar because it's so unbelievable. I've never been Soul Survivor. I have no intention to go Soul Survivor. From when you don't have rice and beans and chicken at a Soul Survivor, I don't go to no Soul Survivor. So you know what I mean. I'm not able to have chips every day with tomato ketchup and beans. You know what I'm saying? I am not. You know what I'm saying, so I ain't been to Soul Survivor because it might have been part of that life anyway. Still, that was for the CC's churches, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about church. I'm from the other churches, not the CC churches. But anyway, I'll put it out there. So that's got nothing to do with me. But that's amazing to say. No. I'm just teasing my crowd there. But what?
I've heard other versions of that story, is what I'm saying. It's
I could perceive that easily. But what I've also learned from having this conversation with you, and this is why it's really important, is and again, guys, I did not know the full story. We didn't have no big pre-interview. I just know James. The longest I've ever spoke to James was the phone call that we had to see if we can line this up. We have not had guys. I just do not know. I saw James at Mark's wedding, and I go, hold on, I know you, blood. Like you say, we know it. Because the socials. We've been active in this, and I've actually gone into old emails between myself and Prince. So who was the publicist at Twin Knife Chat?
Yeah, that was a mixture of Prince and myself. We used to have like those media packs which we used to send out to you guys, and I remember you on the list, and very much like we used to send you CDs and the packs media packs and all of that.
Yep.
So yeah, it would have been one of us. It would have been either Prince or myself, kind of liaising with you.
Did you find? I'm just gonna keep it 100 because obviously you had it hard, like we know breaking into the we saw the rise of OTR records. I am a very vocal person, which has been very annoyed about the white Christian music scene to this very day. I don't think they've embraced urban gospel at all. They've embraced rap. They still haven't done that to this day. I remember like I grew up in a white area, 100%, you know what I mean? So I understand, and obviously that means I was open to people like Red Hot Chili Pepper and all them things there still. Yeah, so I was getting sauce from everywhere still. You know what I mean? And like you said, I laugh at MC Hammer because that was my guys at school getting exposed to we've got to break just to make it today. You know what I mean? The early days. You know what I mean? And this is because you have to realize that TV controlled everything. This thing called BBC 1, 2, 3, 4, they just controlled it all. For me, was it it's very hard to break into Christian music scene. OTR was for me a good optic, but it was poorly delivered. I spoke to some like Green Jade and yourself. From the outside in, looking in, I'm going, these guys have made it. They've been distributed by OTR Records. But the thing is, it still fell a lot short to respect the power of rap music 10 years on from how it impacted our lives. Because you guys are seasoned now. You guys have been impacted from your teenage years. You're in your 20s, and we're still trying to convince Christian music that rap is worth investing in to capture our youngsters. Our youngsters are going to Jay-Z concerts, and we're trying to convince the church that it is worthwhile investing into this thing. And I feel like for me, I will be making side swipes, and I will be ignoring Christian music corporate until they respect and invest the value that it brings in popular society. You know what I'm saying? It's over 50% of the value. If you see the influence of rap culture negatively in crime, in relationship, how we treat our relationships, you would invest in it. You would invest in this form, and the refusal to do it, for me, is culturally. I can't say racial because it is a multiracial almost output now. You know what I mean? I grew up, groups like Streets. Is it Streets? Different group. Or what's it? Yeah. Different group like the Streets and so on. And different things like that. I just don't understand how we got to a stage now where we're still looking at poor investment into the rap arena. I don't know. For yourselves, is it something which you guys in the background try to champion, or you guys said, you know what, I've had enough of this, I'm gone? You know what I'm saying? So where are you guys right now in terms of trying to champion the struggles that we had in the past, or you guys said, you know what, guys, I'm done? You know what I'm saying? How has it been for you guys?
I mean, I think about this a lot because I guess from a production side, I've continued obviously in my musical journey. It's just in different ways, right? And so I think there was a lot of us. Yeah, I think I look at groups like us and groups like Jade who worked so hard at doing it well and put a lot of time and effort, investment, passion, energy, and gave so much in. And so I look at Green Jade. I'm like, all those guys, our counterparts in times of worship music are sitting in mansions, putting their kids through private school, setting up massive organizations, and yet we're just and it's have we put in less than them? No, of course we haven't. That doesn't mean that their journey isn't valid or they haven't struggled as well. But the difference, the kind of, I guess, the divide there is just absolutely massive. And I think there's groups like us and the Jade who have contributed so much to the scene. But like you say, the problem is it's also about the stories that are getting told. I met a rapper recently. So I did I worked with Youth for Christ, and we did like a
Yes.
channel of just like focusing on rap music in the out of the UK. So I met like a couple of years ago. I met like a load of the kind of current rappers on the scene, and I was like, I remember I met this guy, and I was like, he's a good dude or whatever. And we were talking, and I was rattling off these names because he said to me, he was like, oh, no one's doing this. It's like I really felt like no one's like doing like rap music or grime music, but doing it Christian. I was like, bro,
Are you mad, blood? Are you mad? Are you mad?
I'm like, the guy wasn't being disrespectful. This is what at first I felt a bit frustrated. I was like, you don't know about the uncles out here now that have been like, we've worked so hard for this, and do you know what I mean? And so, do you know what? I walked away from that, and I was like, also partly shame on us, man, because there's two things there. One is that yes, the industry didn't support us in perhaps as much as they could have, but you've got to remember, like, record labels don't take risks. They act like they do, but they don't really take risks. And this is true in the secular world, mainstream music. It's also true especially true with Christian labels. They don't actually, especially in the UK, they don't really have the funds to take risks anyway, because there's always an economy at play, and the record labels have struggled in the UK, full stop, whether it's like worship music or whether it's whatever. So obviously there's an economy of scale to talk about, but the investment piece hasn't happened. There hasn't been like labels that have gone, we're going to take that money and we're going to seed it back in and we're going to grow a scene. But I think also what was lacking a lot of the time, to be quite frank, is discipleship. It's like we see over and over what happens in the mainstream world when you give a young man $20 million on a deal, and you know what happens, whether it's rap music, whether it's pop music, whether it's rock music, whatever, like that story never ends well. And so I'm not sure if we actually would have had an infrastructure to cope with that. Is one point of tension in the conversation. But there was people that we met that were like, there was obviously a heart to kind of go, something is special is happening with what you're doing, and something like, they wanted to have that kind of evangelical arm, but evangelizing kids in school doesn't pay. Like it doesn't pay like worship music does, where it's like they're singing it over and over in church, and they've set up a system called CCLI, which goes every church has to pay a license fee, and so the songwriters get paid, and the worship, so the worship leaders are getting paid like off the back end of singing their own songs. It's like it's a system that's at play that we don't have. So we could go on stage and perform in front of 50,000 people, and maybe you'll get a little bit of a kickback off PPL if that's a good venue and it's registered and the label have done their hard work and due diligence. But you get your fee and you go home. And it's like, because we're not selling like we didn't have Spotify back then, so we couldn't grow our own thing and amass numbers. And like, I sometimes wish that I could try again what we were doing on Spotify, because I think the numbers we would have been a lot more free to self label. We just didn't have the facilities to do it back then. So we worked with a few different labels trying it out. It just never really worked for us, and it wasn't because necessarily they were bad people. It was just that the system wasn't really there, the money wasn't really there. It's like, yes, they might pay for your mixing or they might pay for your mastering, which at the time is like a lot of money that you're grateful to not have to spend. But I guess what they have to take in terms of percentages is too high to really make anything off. And the truth is, unless you're getting big numbers, those percentages are kind of like, they're not going to put anything back in your pocket anyway. So it's a lost leader every time. It's really hard to break out. So I, like you, Roger, I do carry a level of frustration at the Christian labels in the UK, at the lack of investment. But I also think actually there's also an element where I think churches, quite frankly, could have embraced the scene a lot more and could have taken a lot more ownership in terms of supporting what we were. In fact, I remember going to my church I had a friend who went to Burundi and she got support for being a missionary. I moved to London like to be a missionary, and they wouldn't support me because they were like, oh, but you know, because it wasn't overseas.
Yeah.
They didn't see it as being a missionary thing. And so there's just a lot of, I think there was just always been this kind of level of lack of understanding of like, we definitely felt like we were missionaries. We were living like missionaries for sure. The budgets that we were on. Do you know what I mean? But I think because then you're on stage and it looks good because we've worked really hard to make sure it does, because we want to be relevant and credible and we want to do a good job. It's a really difficult space to sit in for your artistry and everything. And so I think it's really, what I'm saying is, Roger, I think it's really complicated. I carry the same frustration with you at the labels, and the lack of foresight and you know, willing to kind of grow a scene and grow also like disciples. And like, but I also see a thing of kind of going, well, it wasn't just the labels sitting pretty causing the issue. I think the whole thing, and also, bro, like we found people just don't turn up to gigs, man. It's like, you sell tickets, man. It's hard.
No,
it's hard.
You know, it's hard work. And I think something you mentioned, and it's a valid point, is, and again, we're not here to get banned in church, but you know, I don't business anyway. But you know, I mean, church culture has been so outdated. Undertoned, outdated, it's unreal. If church culture pushed to be relevant to a young generation, we would have seen the rise of rap 100%. If they took note, we would have seen a rise of rap. I think that church culture has invested into or not invested into the diversification of cultures, in terms of respect for cultures. I think they haven't done enough, hence why when we have situations like George Floyd movement, why churches were still struggle to say Black History Month, they still struggle to say the word black, they still struggle to understand that Elvis he's not the king of rock and roll. He's just plagiarizer of a style of music, and whatsoever. I'm not saying that, you know, he's a bad artist. He's done well, but you know, it's to understand the cultural diversities of the world. There's a very empire-ish approach when it comes to churches and music. And I remember watching a podcast within COVID where people said the sound of worship is what we know as praise and worship right now, and I believe that is a really uneducated approach towards worshiping God. You know what I mean? You can worship God in any platform that is relatable to your generation, and I think we missed a massive investment now. You know, if we really wanted to, churches should be going, 29 chapters coming to town. Yo, guys, we're going to pay for the tickets for our youngsters to go there because we know this is a space. We know you like this. Instead, I know that children that were going to Elim churches were, and I said Jay-Z concept before because I know I spoke to youngsters that are not black, you know what I'm saying, who were saying they were going to Jay-Z. And I'm going, hold on, if you like Jay-Z, why we, you know me, and I remember Four Corners was going to do a Soul Survivor or something. I think it was doing Soul Survivor, and I was playing football, and some of the kids that were going to a church, Elim church, south of Birmingham. So I said to him, he's pastor's son, and I said to him, yo, who are you looking forward to? Four Corners. I said, what about Dweeb? Oh, forget them. Four Corners is the band. And I'm looking at him going, so it's like there's this poor communication that's going on in this space, and missed opportunity. But 100% agree, there's a lot of economics in it, there's a lot of how we're going to change church culture, but I just still feel that Christian music, churches is like, you know, I call it Farrah trousers. And if you guys remember Farrah trousers, you know, back in the, I just still feel that execs are still wearing old school 90s clothes in the 2025 era. I do feel that we do have time, our generation, to impact the scene right now. I feel that they are rudderless and leaderless, yeah, and it does somehow mean that we need to stop pretending that we've got issues between ourselves and our preconceived ideas of each other, and actually realize that we got plenty. And this is why I'm really pushing for these conversations, because people get to see the human side to all of us and actually go, yo, big man, we need to come together. We got to look at this. I've got so-and-so who's been successful in so-and-so and he wants to invest. Let's bring some of the old heads and then bring that knowledge into and utilize the youngsters. If we, you know, I'm shouting out there, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, I think that's 100% something that can easily happen, but it all comes through process healing. And I know we've fought things, and myself, guys, you know, I had my perceptions. You heard me at the beginning of 29th chapter. Now I have learned that I have a lot of a Brummy. We have a famous Brummy, you know what I'm saying? Even though he dissociates himself from us, you know, I just remember that dissociation. All I think of is traveling up to Nottingham and I pass Coleshill. You know the one there? when I take my son up to Loughborough and I go on the motorway, I said, yep, there's Coleshill. I can jump on the M6 now. I just really, you know, and James, you know, talking about yourself, I didn't realize that you were rapping so early. And I can imagine you guys being the West London boys, the boys from Chelsea, you know, and then when there's the Chelsea boys, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? They don't fit with us. They got tight pants on and whatever, man. They don't wear baggy trousers, you know what I mean? So, don't really relate to these guys. But to see all this journey that you guys did and struggle and try to get it right. I think we just tried to get it right and just couldn't get it over over the hill. But I still see you guys still investing in ministry, still busy, still active, you know what I mean, in ministry right now is actually great. I know it's only two of you here, but I know you guys are active in the ministry, active in people's lives. I give God the praise for that. But for me, I still feel that we got something to give, guys. You know what I'm saying? Back into the scene. I love Dave. You still know to use the studio. You still got the stuff gear there. You're still ready to. You're still in action, unless you just gone into the archive room. You know what I'm saying? So you're still in action. You know what I mean? And still going. But what are you doing right now, Dave? Just to give us insight in yourself now, James, so people just have to know what you guys are up to right now.
Yeah, so I'm actually pastoring a church in Basingstoke, in Hampshire. For those of you that don't know where Basingstoke is, pastoring, bit of entrepreneur stuff, just, you know, some side hustles going on. Still in ministry, as you say, still very much in ministry, still bringing a lot of the stuff that God deposited in me from a young age into what I do now. You know, it's like I'm in a quite a small, quiet community, but, you know, there's still a lot of drugs and I wouldn't say so much crime, but obviously if there's drugs there's going to be crime. 100%. But there's a lot of just like disenfranchised young people that are just seeking to reach, really. So I think my history has done me well in terms of like preparing me for this. Cool. And it's a slightly different route now because, you know, there's a lot more like studying the word and that kind of stuff, but I've still got that heart for evangelism. And in fact, we're doing a mission this weekend. I still have that drive, you know. Cool. I still have that kind of that push when it comes to getting on the street and just chatting to people and that kind of thing. Family, you know, family is a big part of my life right now. I have the blessing of being able to work from my home, so you know, I get to be with my family. We homeschool our kids, so we get to be together like a lot, which I'm very grateful for. And that's pretty much me.
All right then, David, so what you up to, man? I bet it's gonna be man. I work for I do some commercials out there. You seen that advert there? So what are you up to now, production wise, bro? Some big boy production.
That'd be very nice. I mean, I'm just I'm still doing my own. I've got a few different outlets of my own music, which to be honest, still trying to build some. I've got a couple of artists that I kind of work with, and it's like it's not like management in the traditional sense, but it's like I've got partnership with a couple of artists where I act as manager, but I also produce and write, and we've got like a few things bubbling there. So they're more like in the development stage at the moment. And then I run a recording studio, and I split my time between music and video as well. And I do some video work as well. So just anything to pay the bills, man. It's just, this industry is not easy. So I'm still self-employed, kind of working in that capacity. So like different days look like different days basically. But my passion is my passion has always just been music. I've produced albums for people, and again, that's across the board, like all kinds of different stuff.
Cool. Cool.
So yeah,
that's crazy. And guys, listen, man, you know, I'm gonna do like this. You know what I do. You check me out, man. And I believe that, you know, we all active in ministry. You know, myself, like like obviously my beginnings was music production, event management, and different things like that, and I've just grown into a bit of a Rupert Murdoch type guy who just like, I call myself a pirate station. I just do like a pirate station. Ain't no one gonna plug me out, you know what I mean? On YouTube for the gospel, and but like you said, as a creatives, the diversification, the cheapness of equipment, and let me be real, cheapness in terms of, imagine guys, yeah, we had accessibility to music videos back when we were coming through, bro. It would be, and YouTube, just imagine YouTube, and it's just, you're thinking, what could we have done? But you know what, guys, it is what it is. It's foundational.
Yeah.
It never came easy, and it really it developed a muscle for ministry, you know what I mean? And I feel that, we but the thing is, what we need to do now, and this is my shout out to the OGs out there in the world, we need to come out of a retirement. One of the key elements, and I'll share this here with yourselves. I remember the late DJ Official. I remember when I don't know if you guys remember him. I did obviously I was doing GR Lives, and he came over and he was talking to me when he did GR Live, and his frustration was the divide in rap in America. There was the Cross Movements crew, the Reach Records crew, and there was there was a lot of a lot of lines, but people didn't really. It just got silly, you know what I mean? But people stuck in belief systems, and I remember talking to somebody after, and he was very passionate because he played for both crews. He played for Lambo. He was not Lambo, but that's DJ Essence. But he was mixing between. He would go play for Reach Records because he was doing the Reach Records gigs for himself, and he also at the same time he knows all these guys, but he was just cool with everybody. And when he died, I remember some of the guys that give me feedback that the people like, why are we not really working? You know what I mean? Why are we not talking? You know what I mean? It's this guy pushed for us. You know what I mean? He didn't understand the divides and this, and I feel like we have got silly divides in our generation of things, which is just down to lack of understanding, not realizing the journey. Like you said, putting out having a perception of how you guys got with Soul Survivor. It's clearly that you guys grew up in that culture and grew up there and actually worked your way into it. You know what I'm saying? Through hard work and opportunities and skill, 100% getting in there. So I feel like, still guys, we just need to man up, go, yo, brethren, give each other our firms, and goes, what can we do? You know what I'm saying? Not everybody's going to do it. It's going to be a few of us, but I believe this is the time of the season, you know what I mean, for this, man. And, and Dave, you can loose them tones out again and feel like you're Brummy again, man. Well, you know what I'm saying? We're trying to make the Brummy accent popular again, mate. You know what I'm saying? So don't worry, mate. You don't have to talk so cute, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? From you down south, you can relax, mate, with us. You can relax, the one there. But I appreciate your time, and people thinking, what a conversation. And again, guys, I know there's so many things we can talk about, but I just appreciate you two for your time. I did warn you, James, that it's not going to be a short one. You know what I'm saying? And I just so much appreciate that got a lot of lack of understanding that I had with 29th chapter, and I now shall go to bed in peace, going, they were good. They were good brothers, They weren't the drugged up band that we thought they were. They were hard. They fought like the rest of us. They fought like us, man. They you know what I'm saying? They worked hard and you got the. But listen, I learned so much, guys, and we do appreciate it. And I pray that people that do listen to this podcast actually appreciate the fight and understand the fight it took for us. Before 1995, 2005. I'm gonna say, man, I'm gonna age myself there. Before 2005, you know what I'm saying? Before UK grime, you know what I'm saying? We were doing rap. You know what I'm saying? Before the grime scene really even hit, we was doing raps out there. And for at least a decade before, the receipts are going even more further back, right into the 91, 92, you have receipts of people bringing rap delivering rap in the UK. So it's all there, guys. Listen, if you're out there and you want to tell your story, listen, man, just holler me. But listen, enough appreciation to David and James. Acts 29 And underneath that 29th chapter, I get it now, you know what I'm saying? Get my chest out now. I actually get it now. I actually understand. And the underdogs out there still, you know what I'm saying? This is how we do it out here, man. Nothing but love, my guys, man. Listen, blessings, man. And thanks again, man. Blessings.
God bless.
Man, thank you, bro.
Hey, this is your bishop. This is your bishop from Rock Solid. Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube. Thank you so much for clicking and subscribing and also sending these videos to other people as well. We are so hungry to get your support. So remember, check us out on our website, and also check us out on Insta and wherever you want to find us. On Spotify, you can play us all day as well. And just make sure that you are supporting this channel, that we are developing our agenda towards music of Black origin, and that is gospel music with a message. So please walk with us on this journey. Bye now.